Never would I have thought that the Canadian government would cause such detrimental harm to the entire population and then offer to sell a solution, ironically, right before an election. We're talking about Mark Miller and how he's pretty much ruined, in conjunction with Sean Fraser, the previous immigration minister, ruined the immigration system here in Canada. And now they're saying, hey, look, we're fixing it. You should vote for us. Super, super bizarre. So we're taking a look at that today, as well as a Punjabi singer is being shot at least his house is, and his property is being burnt in Canada, specifically on Vancouver Island. That is very interesting because guns are illegal. So how did this person get guns to shoot at this Punjabi singer? And then Canada is potentially heading into a recession, and there's arguments to make that we are currently in one, along with many other stories covered. So I hope you stick around for the full video. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage everyone to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And if you want to support the channel above and beyond subscribing, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link for that down in the description or the pinned comment below. And without further ado, let's get into it. We're starting off with the polls. Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre sitting at 210 projected seats. Bottom line, 179. Top end at 233. Everything is looking good right there. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals down to 81 projected seats. And I stay true to my belief that I do think that once they get into the House of Commons in a couple of weeks, you're going to start to see Justin Trudeau go even further down into the 70s, maybe even bottom out somewhere in the 60s. And then you have 99% likely across the board for winning the most seats and a majority government. So everything is looking as it should right there. Now let's take a look at some more international news before we start off with the Canadian stuff. You have Europe Invasion posted this heartbreaking post here on X. Breaking news. 5 children have been arrested for the murder of an 80-year-old man in a park in Britain. 2 children are 14 years old and 3 children are 12 years old. UK is falling. That is absolutely absurd that crime is happening at that young of an age. And then you have Biden saying the Secret Service doesn't let him go out into crowds anymore. They say it's too dangerous. Not because of what happened to Trump, but because it's Biden and he might stumble into someone else's car accidentally and they might drive away. I don't know. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
President, how was it to be back on the campaign trail today?
Feels good.
That's good. How do you feel about Pennsylvania?
Except I'm not able to go out in the crowds anymore. The Secret Service doesn't let me.
No, why not?
Well, because it says it's too dangerous. No one gets to go out. No, we're not. You know, serious.
How do you feel about Pennsylvania right now?
I feel real good about Pennsylvania. I think we're going to win Pennsylvania.
So he's trying to make the claim, and they're trying to push the rhetoric that for his protection, for his life and safety, because of what happened to Donald Trump, he can't go out into crowds, which is why you don't see him out doing press conferences really anymore. And to be honest, ever since Kamala has been running for president, I think we've noticed significantly less amount of Joe Biden. It really feels like Kamala is currently the president, but that could just be my own personal bias because of my news cycle or what I get to see. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And then you have this right here, how talk about election interference. Alexa won't give you any information about Donald Trump, but they'll give you information about Kamala Harris.
Alexa, why should I vote for Donald Trump?
I cannot provide content that promotes a specific political party or a specific candidate.
Alexa, why should I vote for Kamala Harris?
While there are many reasons to vote for Kamala Harris, the most significant may be that she is a strong candidate with a proven track record of accomplishment.
That is crazy. Talk about election interference. We're seeing it right in front of our eyes. And I feel like they're going to start to do something similar here in Canada, and they're really going to suppress Pierre Poilievre and, you know, his push on social media, and even just searching him, and everything that you type on social media is going to redirect you to something positive about Justin Trudeau. So be vigilant and make sure that you're subscribed with post notifications so you can actually be notified of videos like this. And then you have this very interesting story here. Just returned from the Olympics, a Ugandan athlete is set on fire by her boyfriend. And you see the top comment here says, we must respect how other cultures do things and not criticize. Ugh, that's horrible. So what happened was the boyfriend brought a jerry can of petrol, poured it on her, and set her ablaze during a disagreement on Sunday. Both of them sustained burns, and they are currently getting treatment at a nearby hospital. But yeah, no, that. I could see Justin Trudeau saying, hey, you can't criticize that. That's their culture. That's how bizarre of a world we are living in. And now let's get into some Canadian news. So Table Salt here has kind of a controversial post, and it's getting a lot of traction. If you got offered US or Swiss citizenship and all you had to do was pour coffee for 2 years, would you take it? This is why immigrants are not to blame. The government is to blame. So that's in reference to Canadian immigration, where you had a bunch of temporary foreign workers, student visas, whatever it was, people that were said, hey, come and work at Tim Hortons, at McDonald's, at Walmart, whatever it is, right? And you can get permanent residency or citizenship after 2 years. And now the government, instead of paying forward that citizenship, which they promised, they're rug pulling them, saying, no, we're going to cut back on immigration and none of you are getting it, and there's going to be mass deportation. The Liberal government is saying that, of all things, which is taking everyone kind of by surprise. So this is where that post is kind of controversial, because how do you view it, right? Is it the government's fault? Yeah, of course. Is it the individual immigrants' fault for exploiting finding these loopholes, exploiting them in the masses so that more of their family and friends can come here? Yes, that is also part of the issue. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And then, of course, you have Mark Miller, who says federal government limits work hours for international students. And we're going to take a look at this CBC video right here.
International students this school year may be making less money than they were before. A new federal rule limits them to working 24 hours per week beginning this month. And some advocates say the change is necessary, while others are calling it unfair. Brittany Billette has more.
Working at 40 hours gave me more financial stability, and I don't have that anymore.
This Toronto international student says she's already cut down on expenses to prepare for the new rules around work hours for students.
So I moved in with two of my friends to an apartment which is cheaper, so that I can save up on some rent and also cut down on groceries and eating out.
During the pandemic, the federal government temporarily waived the 20-hour cap on work hours to ease labor shortages. Students jumped at the opportunity to make a bit more money. But with things inching back to normal, in April, the feds announced that it would be reintroducing a work hours cap for international students. Now, they can only work 24 hours per week.
We need to support international students and make sure they're set up for success. And that they're here properly studying.
This economic professor agrees. He thinks students need a bit more help focusing on their studies.
What student is not going to choose money over studying? And so it's just going to make the education at post-secondary level a little weaker. It devalues the education a little bit.
Some students who are used to working under the previous cap are welcoming the move as well.
People say that they can't manage, they all want to work, not focus on the studies. That's not fair. They should focus on their studies too.
According to the federal government, every year international students contribute tens of billions of dollars into the Canadian economy. But advocates say the new rules and restrictions are both unwelcoming and unfair.
Not every student can afford to go to school without that extra income. In any structure, you have to have an equity framework.
This return to a work hours cap is being introduced on top of new requirements mandated by the federal government, like doubling how much money students need to have before coming here and a new cap on how many applications the government would accept.
I feel like it's pretty volatile here, and you can't really trust what's going to happen next because the rules keep changing every month.
And for those like Fatah Fakur, the new work hour cap will just make life as a student in an era of inflation that much harder.
I feel like if I have that financial support, then I'm able to study better because I'm not stressing about how I'm going to pay the rent or how am I going to survive, get food tomorrow.
Like many others living in Canada, she says she'll just have to make do as best as she can. Brittany Billette, CBC.
So it is a very broken system, especially for the ones that aren't exploiting it, right? being a foreign international student, it does cost significantly more. Like, you're talking about 4 or 5 times as much as it would for a non-immigrant student, one who resides here, has citizenship in Canada, and goes to regular college, university. 4 or 5 times as much for an immigrant to come here and do that. But the issue with this is that there has been an exploitation of our immigration to the point where you have these people coming in on these student visas, and they are not sitting even 1 minute in class, and it dilutes the entire program, and it makes everybody look bad, and it turns citizens against immigrants, which is what you're seeing right now, which is why there's so much online rhetoric against Indian immigrants, whether they're students or here on working visas, whatever it is, because it's been exploited and nobody trusts the system anymore. But I would love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. I think personally it's a really good thing that the Liberal government, or whoever government, liberal or conservative, but it just so happens that the Liberals right now are pulling back on the immigration. But I mean, they did cause it, so they don't get too many claps. They get 2 claps. That's all they get. All right, moving on here. This is a pretty interesting story. A pair of Toronto lawyers accused of embezzling nearly $7 million from real estate clients has been found in contempt of court for failing to hand over financial records and answer questions about where the money went. That is absolutely crazy. I feel like that's the plot out of a movie, but I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And now we're taking a look at this crazy story here, this Punjabi rapper, where there was gunfire reported outside of his house in Victoria, BC, specifically in Colwood, which is just west or just south of Victoria. Let's take a look here. This has been covered by all of the mainstream news, as you can imagine. Now, we can't watch the video because it does depict gunfire, and that'll get obviously banned. But you can see the perpetrator here set fire to the vehicles in the driveway. It did burn down a little bit of the garage, and then you can see a gun here and fired something like 14 shots. So the person who's holding the gun, who committed the crime, Brar, was ranked 15th on Canada's most wanted list in 2023, accused of murder, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and weapons trafficking. India's Ministry of Home Affairs accused Brar of being a member of the outlawed Babar Khala terrorist group. Brar came to Canada on a student visa in 2017. My God, this just adds more fuel to the fire of, holy crap, we really need to watch who we invite into this country, even on student visas. He was considered the successor to gangster Lawrence Bishnoi, another former Toronto resident who was imprisoned in India on an assortment of organized crime convictions. They're all Toronto guys, the former gangster said. And that is kind of crazy because they're from Toronto, yet they're out here in Victoria, BC, doing these types of crimes. So kind of crazy. And I don't know how he got that gun. You know, handguns are illegal. Didn't he get the memo? So I'm not sure why he's committing an illegal crime with an illegal gun, because Justin Trudeau was very clear that those types of guns are banned and that type of crime is banned. But here we are. Criminals don't listen to the law. Justin Trudeau, get your head out of your ass and stop going after law-abiding citizens' guns when criminals are the problem. Next up, we have this kind of horror story here coming out of Quebec via rail. Now, I don't know if anyone here watching this video has taken the Via Rail train. I personally have, and it was a horrible experience in terms of customer service, in terms of how the staff handles people on the train. The actual scenery only gets good once you get to the west coast of Alberta, and then obviously the remainder of BC. But everything else, it is what it is. But specifically in this story, Via Rail passengers are stranded on the train for 10 hours outside of Quebec City this weekend with limited water. And someone tries to record the situation, and the Via Rail employee grabs the phone out of his hands in order to prevent him from showing what's happening.
Tout le monde assis, s'il vous plaît. So, I don't know why he was so angry. Like, we weren't doing anything. People were standing in the aisles chatting and just started yelling, everyone sit down, pushed a lady. That's when most people started to film.
On Saturday, a Via Rail train traveling from Montreal to Quebec City was stuck on the tracks with mechanical issues about 2 hours into the 3-hour trip. After about 8 hours of waiting, a Via Rail employee pulled a cell phone out of a passenger's hand when he began filming after witnessing this employee allegedly push another passenger.
I was standing right there. He was screaming at me to sit down, and I was like, just telling him, hey, our legs are tired. We're trying to stand and stretch our legs. And he snatched my phone from my hand, and then, as you see in that video, pushed me. And right after that, obviously my wife in the video kind of jumped in, and that's when things started to escalate.
You need to get us out of here.
We're trying our best. Once we have any information, we will let you know. But what he did, I know it's not right.
Chip Malt, on vacation from Austin, Texas, says after the incident, tensions were high. Adding passengers were offered alcoholic beverages during the wait, something Via Rail says they don't do during prolonged delays.
I doubt he's coming back to Canada. Are you kidding me? Holy smokes. A grown man's phone getting confiscated from him while he's on a train that he paid to be on that train. That is super weird. And that just goes to show, hey, man, there should probably be a little bit more of a reshuffling with the Via Rail employees, but that's my own personal opinion. Now we're taking a look at kind of our economy, specifically housing. This video here, I have to mute it because of some of the music that's played, but this guy right here, I'm assuming on TikTok, breaks down how crazy mortgages are in Canada. So you're looking at a house in Brampton, $1.5 million. Now, in order to qualify for this house of $1.5 million, you're going to need to put $300,000 down as a down payment. That is a lot of money. And then your monthly payments are going to be $7,400. That is a shit ton of money to be paid on a mortgage. Now, I don't have the exact amount pulled up of debt servicing ratio, but that is, you're going to need at least like $15,000 of monthly income to be able to pull that off. And then your income, obviously for the year, is $260,000 every single year. Now, the very important thing to take a look at is the house. This is just a regular townhouse, a regular detached house in a residential area in Brampton. It is not a $1.5 million. That's like an $800,000, maybe $900,000 house. But because it's in Brampton, let's bring it down 25%. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. And then you have this chart right here that shows Canadian homes versus income. So as you can see, home prices back in 2005, the average home price, $200,000, and it was 6.4 times the average income. And our average income is this blue line right here. As you can see, it doesn't really go up a lot. It goes maybe from $50,000 to $70,000. But right now, between the average income in Canada to the average house price in Canada, you're looking at 11 times. That is unprecedented. No wonder people are defaulting. No wonder people can't afford mortgages. No wonder we're in the current state that we are in. It doesn't make any sense at all. House prices either have to come down drastically, or incomes have to go up drastically, or there has to be some form of a medium in there, because it's not sustainable. And you don't have to listen to me. You can listen to this guy right here. So Wiretap Media shared this video on X. CEO of Loans Canada claims there's over $1 billion worth of mortgage defaults in Canada in the second quarter of 2024.
Well, according to a new report from Equifax Canada, credit delinquencies increased in the second quarter as Canadian households continue to navigate pressure from high living costs and rising unemployment. Credit card balances averaged $4,300 per credit card user. That's the highest level since 2007, with total outstanding balances rising 14% from last year. For some tips on how you can deal with your debt, we're joined by Scott Satov. He's Chief Executive Officer of Loans Canada. Scott, let's begin with the numbers from Equifax. Credit card balances rising. I'm seeing to the highest level on record at $4,300 Canadian dollars per card in the second quarter. How concerning is that?
No doubt, it's very concerning, Paul. It's the highest level since 2007, and it's representing 2.5 trillion of credit card debt, 4,300 per person in Canada. Certainly a huge amount of debt carried by Canadian consumers. And individuals and Canadians are looking for ways to reduce this debt and make their living more affordable.
What are we seeing in delinquencies? People simply not being able to pay what they owe?
Sure. I mean, there's over $1 billion of delinquencies for the first time in mortgages in Canada. That's created by a multiple of different effects. But I mean, the main issue is inflation, consumer spending, which is causing a havoc in Canadian households. That bundled with the housing affordability crisis certainly doesn't help. And now there's higher employment than there has been in previous years, which is adding debt to Canadians' credit card balances as they look for ways to pay off their expenses on a monthly basis.
Right. So you're seeing a massive amount of debt just spreading across Canada like wildfire. And I don't know how we're going to get out of this. But what I do know is the banks are complaining for some reason. You have RBC here saying Canada's mortgage lending giant admits that a rate war is being waged. Maybe this has something to do with the fact that people just do not trust the banks. So in this article, you have them complaining that people are getting less and less mortgages at the banks, which, hey, banks, I don't know if anyone told you, but it's very difficult to get a mortgage. It's almost unaffordable. If you didn't look at that chart that I just showed where it's 11 times, the house price is 11 times the average income here in Canada. So maybe that has something to do with it. And then the fact that the big banks really gouge you with, higher interest rates and a whole bunch of other fees attached. It just drains people, suckles at their teat. They're just like a leech. It's absolutely disgusting. And then in this article, it just goes to show that people just aren't affording it. And there's a massive distrust in the banks. And I would love to know down in the comments what you guys think. Do you like the big banks? Are you against them? Do you prefer credit unions? Let me know what you guys think. And then, of course, you have economists are saying that tomorrow there's going to be a rate cut. At least that's what they are projecting, which seems good on paper. But if they bring it down too fast, which it seems like they are, we're heading into a massive recession.
So there's probably a cut coming for sure, Akshay. The issue now is it going to be 25 basis points, or you're even now hearing rumors that it might be 50 basis points. But there's no question, I think, that there's a cut coming.
So once the rate is announced, whether it's 25 basis point or 50, how do you see the economy reacting to it?
Well, favorably, right? It's a return to business as usual with inflation now in that 1% to 3% range that the Bank of Canada covets so much. They've accomplished that every month this year, and there's no sign that it's going to go outside of that range. So it just means that this is going to be the continuation of rate cuts. I can't imagine that the economy is going to react negatively to it. There's other news that might suggest it could react negatively too, but this will not be one of them.
Let me ask you about why do you think there is speculation between 25 and 50, and what are the factors that the governor will look at, whether it has to be 25 basis point or 50?
Well, if you remember, one of the things that we regularly talk about is that when you have interest rate changes, the effect is not instantaneous. It takes about 18 to 24 months, same way when interest rates go up, same way when interest rates go down. So one of the things that the Bank of Canada mentioned earlier this year is that they think that they could actually see inflation falling below 2% and falling into the 1-point-something% range. And so it might be a case then where they can go aggressively on cuts. And even if it leads to a little bit of an increase in inflation 12 to 18 months out from now, it's still going to be in that 1% to 3% range. And so the thought is then that with the Canadian economy a little bit soft, like you said, GDP per person declining, maybe this is the time then that you do a little bit of an aggressive cut and see how it plays out. You can always pause interest rate cuts at the meeting in October and December if necessary.
Okay, let's talk about the impact it's going to have, for example, on the housing market. We know that's a significant part of the economy. Now, we haven't seen much movement in terms of, investments when it comes to the housing market with the last two cuts in the interest rate. Inventory is also high. What changes are you expecting there, you think?
Yeah, so the housing market is still very much overheating in a lot of markets. And even though we've seen some softening, especially in, for example, Toronto, it's still overvalued. And so when you cut interest rates, in theory, this would allow for the market to start to expand again. But the fact is that the markets are really doing rather well. I think the broader issue for the housing market is going to be what starts happening in terms of immigration into the country, the changes in federal policy. Does that slow down population growth? Does that slow down the demand side for housing? And if the demand side slows down, that could take some of the air out of the housing market, regardless of what the interest rate does.
My last question to you was, last week's stats we saw that Canada Statistics shared with us was that data saying Canada's economy grew 2.1% on an annualized basis in the second quarter. And that was much more than what analysts were actually predicting even at the BOC. So if there were to be a rate cut now, whether 25 or 50 basis point, what would that really mean for the third quarter?
Well, the third quarter is going to be influenced in part by the summer weather that we saw. It's going to be influenced by the strike that we saw, that it was even short, but it did have an effect. And so I don't know that we're going to see an interest rate cut this late into the third quarter is going to really affect third quarter GDP all that much. The cuts are probably going to start to show up in the fourth quarter, and that's going to be the real impact plays out. But remember, too, that if we're talking about 2.1% growth in the economy, that's below Canada's average over the last 30 to 40 years. So even though we're talking about stronger growth, the fact is it's not all that great. And so there's still room then to try and cut rates to maybe give the real economy a bit of a boost.
Moshe.
So this is what The Economist on mainstream media has to say. And I know that there's a lot of other more private sector people that really disagree. I think that the consensus is, if they keep bringing rates down the way they are doing, yes, that is good on paper, but it's too big of a shock to our economy. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Are we heading into a recession or are we not? Let me know what you guys think. That is where we're going to end this video, ladies and gentlemen. On your way out, I would like to encourage you guys one last time to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And if you liked parts of this video, if there was a good takeaway, you can support the channel above and beyond subscribing by buying me a coffee. Link is down below in the description or the pinned comment below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.